Tuesday in the Champions League. It was incredibly wild, and I personally feel like I have done you a disservice by not talking about it up to this point. But I've got to put it on hold for one more thing. You might notice a little shine. I am wearing a gold chain. That's because right after I record this, I am going to a premiere that my friend invited me to. It is the first time I'm going to a premiere, and there's potentially a red carpet, so we're breaking out a little bling. Don't worry, this is a gold chain I bought on Amazon for the cheapest possible price when you Amazon Prime something called a gold chain, which is actually remarkably cheap. And it adds a little flavor town. Looks like I'm about to try some diners, dive-ins, and dives. Anyways, God, what a job he has. The Champions League on Tuesday. Absolutely, well, nuts. I mean, not as nuts as the League Cup was, obviously. We've already talked about this. But Atletico Bilbao and Arsenal was not part of that nutsness. Arsenal left it to the second half, controlled the match, and ended up winning. 62% possession. And, you know, this is one of those matches that if you're going to struggle, like if Arsenal is going to struggle over the course of this tournament, it's going to be because they lose matches or don't win matches like this. Being able to go on the road, hostile environment. That's an overused phrase, but this is a hostile environment. Going to play against Bilbao. And Bilbao's a very good team. High watermark, Nico Williams and Iñaki Williams and all the other dudes. I really just wanted to mention Nico Williams because obviously they managed to keep him, which was a huge boon for them, right? But this is a Champions League qualifying team out of La Liga that you're able to go on the road and beat. You take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. It's a good win for Arsenal. The other match in the early window was far more interesting because Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, they might be familiar for the last couple of years because they have merged, but this is a team that 10 years ago wasn't even in the top flight of Belgium, right? They are playing really, I believe, their first ever Champions League matches right now. And they not only are in the Champions League for the first time, they're going up against PSV, who is the neighbor, right? We've got Belgium v. the Netherlands. And PSV, this is a very familiar territory for them, right? Right behind Ajax, it's going to be PSV as the teams that just get Champions League time all the time out of the Netherlands. So you would expect, with that kind of experience, the level the Dutch league showed last year in European competitions, that we would get a good performance out of PSV. So naturally, Royal Union Saint-Gilloise took a 2-0 lead in the 39th minute. The second goal by Ait El Hadj, beautiful. Majestic run after a turnover from American striker Ricardo Pepi. America! Hell yeah! That's what we do. But look, PSV was in this game. Even though they ended up down a couple of goals, they were in this game. They had opportunities. The first penalty really wasn't like an egregious, terrible challenge or anything. He didn't know the guy was there and was trying to clear it, and our USG guy was able to get there first. I don't like those types of penalties. They are penalties. And PSV had a couple of chances to try and get back in this game, which makes sense. They were at home and down 2-0. They actually ended up down 3-0 in this match before they scored what was essentially a consolation goal. But this now makes it a lot more difficult for PSV to get into the top 24, which is the goal for both of these clubs, right? There's a few clubs that go into this competition trying not to get embarrassed. These two teams have a realistic chance of getting into the top 24. Our USGs just went up by a lot. PSV not being able to win at home against what I believe is their pot 4 home match, right? This is the easiest match they're going to get the entire draw. Now they got to go get points elsewhere. Right now the alarm bells are ringing. You got to go get points elsewhere if you're going to be able to get yourself into that top 24. So things are uncomfortable for PSV, but not nearly as uncomfortable as they are for Benfica. Because Benfica, look, I didn't watch any of these matches. I was actually streaming at the time, and I should be streaming watch-alongs. I don't know why that wasn't. But I watched the extended highlights of all of these matches. Benfica took a 2-0 lead at home against a team that most people can't even pronounce, right? Because both of the A's, or two of the three A's or something in Karabakh have the double dots above it. I don't know how to say it either, right? They are basically like the chosen team out of Azerbaijan to be able to compete at this level. No other team from Azerbaijan can even sniff a group stage, even in the Conference League. All right, and not to mention, Karabakh has never won a Champions League match ever. I mean, they've won qualifying matches. They've never won a match in the Champions League proper, ever. They have 2 points, ever, at this level. And Benfica is at home, inside a full 16 minutes with a 2-goal lead. There is simply no way at all, that they blow that. I mean, they didn't even celebrate. It was wild to me because I knew the final score watching the highlights. They score the second goal. They're not even really celebrating. It's either the way that you would watch a team that's in the Prem score against a team from League One, right? They kind of high five and everything, but there is no like, yeah. Like the ball goes in the net and he just kind of jogs away like, all right, go team, sports. Right? They just assumed this game was over. They assumed it was a walk in the park. And they got a horribly rude awakening because Karabakh sorted its shit out. The openings Benfica got in the first 20 minutes were numerous. And I won't pretend they didn't have, a couple more chances throughout the course of the match, but Karabakh was nervous, and going behind 2-0 really just loosened the nerves. The expectations of, they just went away. And Benfica, you could tell right after they scored that second goal, took their foot off the gas. I mean, it was 2 goals inside a full 16 minutes. And Karabakh just chipped away. They got 1 goal back that was a well-constructed set piece. It was a free kick that was headed back to somebody who volleyed it in from just inside the 18. Very well taken. Leandro Andrade, who was apparently born in Portugal, which is hilarious. Then right out of the second half, right, Benfica's assuming they're going to have a walk in the park, even though it's like an awkward 2-1. The guy that came in as a sub, or sorry, not a guy that came in as a sub, but a guy, their striker, Duran, not John Duran. Lovely finish. I mean, one of those quick pass running off the shoulder of a center back. It's an angled attempt, and Anatoly Trubin just didn't guess he was going to go far post. He goes inside far post and in, and the stadium is shocked. I mean, the whole stadium is shocked. You could feel it in the air. They couldn't believe what they were watching, right? And everybody just assumed that at that point Benfica would wake up, and they didn't, right? They had the whole second half to figure this out, and they didn't wake up. I don't know why. The crowd was, you know how the crowds can get weird in this situation, and your home field advantage can almost turn into a disadvantage, because it was like awkward silence. It was uncomfortably silent. Not that it was actually silent. I mean, sure, some people were still singing and whatever, but the atmosphere was one of discomfort. They did not feel, there wasn't a need to try and spur the team on, because they were more like, what are you doing? It was confusion, almost. Like, why is this game still going on? It was like the stadium and the team was struggling to process the fact they were 2-2 with Karabakh in the second half. And then they make some substitutions. This guy, Koschuk, ends up scoring the winning goal in the 86th minute. And I mean, it was stunned silence cut by whistles at that point. And I don't even know what Benfica's defense was doing. They're giving these guys far too much time. Koschuk brings the ball down, walks it into the 18. He's doing a little dance, lays it off to another guy who does a little dance, and Koschuk just moves and stands in open space inside the 18, like 13 yards from goal, with multiple Benfica defenders just don't bother to get close enough to him. Quick pass into him. He takes a sharp touch and smacks it towards the goal right away. And it's 3-2. I mean, Benfica's got no excuse for this, right? Because Karabakh, even on their best day, cannot hang with Benfica if they play up to the level that they should be playing at in the Champions League. I give Karabakh, their coaches, their players, endless credit. Because you've seen the writing on the wall. You know, going on the road against Benfica, there's a chance you're going to get blown out. And you go down 2-0 in 16 minutes, and they just didn't go, oh, it's happening again, and just accept their fate. They didn't do that. They just kept plugging away. And Benfica gave them the opportunity to get themselves back in this game. They took their chances, and they won. It's the first ever win for an Azeri team in the Champions League. Ever. At Benfica. That is an amazing accomplishment for them, and it wasn't even the wildest game of the day, obviously. Tottenham managed to beat Villarreal 1-0. This was pretty chill. Early goal that was kind of ushered through the rest of the match. Barely had a full XG between both teams. Marseille, Prison FC against Real Madrid. A lot of people were upset about Real Madrid's penalty. I can at least see the argument, particularly the second one. The first one's a stone-cold penalty. Jeffrey Kondogbia just looked washed on that tackle attempt. A lot of weird subplots in this match. American Timothy Weah scored the opening goal for Marseille, and he looked fantastic in this match, so that was great. Love to see that leading into a World Cup year for us that we are hosting, of course. Trent Alexander-Arnold hurt, I believe, his hamstring early in the game. Then Danny Carvajal came in for him, and the 20-time Champions League winner, captain, and unbelievably experienced, just winner of all winners, headbutted a dude. for an obvious red card in the 72nd minute, at which point Real Madrid goes and gets their second penalty. It was called a handball. It was basically like the trailing hand on the way through, but the problem is if the trailing hand is on the ground, I don't think they call it. The problem is the hand kind of goes like this and smacks the ball against the ground. The more I watched it, the more I was like, yeah, probably. I think a lot of people watched the highlight and thought they were calling it for the challenge, which was not the penalty. It was the hand trailing behind. But really, if you watch this, Real Madrid was so far the better team. It's not like Marseille can be upset they didn't lose. Marseille tried to play out of the back 45 times. They gave it away 45 times. They did not look good. Their attackers look good. But the team as a whole, right? Aubameyang, Timothy Weah, those guys were making plays, but the team as a whole did not look very good. Real Madrid had a ton of chances. Franco Mastantuono was like one-on-one with the goal netting, not even the goalkeeper, and somehow didn't score, right? And the only way Real Madrid ended up being able to score was from the penalty spot, which I realize is a meme, but Real Madrid looked really good in this match. They kind of dominated throughout, and it just awkwardly came down to a red card and a penalty late. Also, Kylian Mbappe looks like a generational player. Marseille, I don't know if they can take too much happiness from this, but they at least gave it a go. Their fans had a fun time. And then there was this absolute monstrosity. If you didn't hear about this match, you're probably living under a rock. Juventus against Dortmund, of course. Right? Juventus against Dortmund, which was, by the way, the most goals ever scored in one half in the Champions League. It tied the record set by Bayern 9, Barcelona 2. I got to make sure that was the Bayern 9, Dinamo Zagreb 2. That match tied the record. That match set the record. This match tied it with 8 goals in the second half. And if you're doing the match, like, wow, there were only 8 goals in the match. Yes, if you're doing the math. If you watch the extended highlights of this match, it's rather funny. You get to halftime in about a minute. And half of that first minute is them just introducing the teams. Nothing happened in the first half relative to what happened in the second half. And in the second half, it was madness. Now, there's two livelihoods here. Borussia Dortmund they cannot believe they didn't win this match. They had the lead 3 separate times, one time by multiple goals. Juventus is coming out of this feeling like $1 million, but also questioning the fact that their goalkeeper is apparently terrible. Watching the goals for Juventus is very pleasing to the eye. They're razor sharp. The first goal by Kenan Yildiz is amazing. The goalkeeper for Juventus, this Di Gregorio fella, 5.4. Like a good goalkeeper, and I'm saying a good goalkeeper, like a pure world-class goalkeeper, you put a Courtois back there, is saving at least 2, probably 3 of the 4 goals that he allowed, and this turns into a dominant Juventus win. Sometimes you go out and you have a bad day. The problem is when you're a goalkeeper and you go out and have a bad day, it is really hard to hide. Really hard. Very obvious. So Juventus, in one sense, is happy because the flow of the match was pretty sharp. It was Dortmund, yes, then Juventus, then Dortmund literally right after, then Juventus, and it's 2-2, then Dortmund. This was a near post goal that you just can't give up at this level. Then a penalty, and then 94th, 96th, and so Juventus is in euphoria that they didn't spot Dortmund 3 points and they grabbed the point from their home match against Borussia Dortmund, which is a solid result. I mean, it's not great, but you're also keeping Dortmund from getting the leg up on you with those 3 points in the table, so that's nice. And if you're down 2 goals with 3 minutes left in stoppage time and you draw, you can't argue with that. Right, and it was really wonderfully done. Dusan Vlahovic just looked like a quintessential star center forward that he, has been for a while in this match. The sort of thing that, teams like Arsenal are just begging to find. Dusan Vlahovic looks like that guy for Juventus right now. Not saying Gyökeres doesn't. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying there's certain teams out there that have been looking for a guy like this for a while. And Vlahovic is delivering as that guy for Juve. So many weird emotions in this match, right? Dortmund, in one sense, feels like they kind of got outplayed because the goals Juventus scored were amazing. Also, they definitely let themselves down. The turnover that led to Vlahovic's goal here, horrible. I don't know why you don't just clear the ball. They were trying to play some tiki-taka in the corner and ended up getting screwed with 2-goal lead with 3 minutes left. Get the ball up the field. So there are a lot of random emotions in this. But this is why football is such a fantastic sport, though. Because you can take a malaise 0-0 at halftime. And sure, probably most of the time, that match will finish 0-0, maybe 1-0 with a penalty. But every once in a while, And the Benfica Karabakh match is the same too, where they go up 2-0 and you're like, oh, turn the game off. Even if you're a Karabakh fan, you're like, I don't want to watch this. This sucks. There's always that chance. Things can change rapidly on a dime. And that's exactly what happened in this match. And it was pure Champions League cinema. It's a match that a lot of people will remember, obviously, for a long time for a lot of different reasons. But most importantly, it was just fun. It was a fun match. Thank you, Champions League.